My daughter said, "You'll ruin my wedding photos with your ugly face," and asked her fiancé's father to walk her down the aisle instead of me. I silently agreed, smiling. But when it was time for my toast in front of 200 guests, I revealed her dirty secret. She's pregnant by another man, and the groom had no idea. He dumped her right there, in front of everyone. Revenge was sweet. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. June 15th, 2025. The tailor's measuring tape felt cold against my neck as I stood in front of the three-way mirror at Portland's finest formal wear boutique. The man staring back at me was 64 years old, gray hair neatly combed back, shoulders still reasonably straight from years of standing over operating tables. And there, running down the left side of my face from temple to jaw, was the scar that had become as much a part of my identity as my name. George Wilson, retired plastic surgeon, widower, father of the bride. "Perfect fit, Mr. Wilson," the tailor said. "You'll look very distinguished walking your daughter down the aisle." I smiled. That's the plan. What a difference an hour makes. Quinn, my daughter, had suggested lunch at Lucia's, one of those trendy Pearl District restaurants where a salad costs more than some people's weekly groceries. She was already seated when I arrived, phone in hand, typing with intensity that suggested whatever she was working on was far more important than our lunch. "Dad, you look great." She stood to kiss my cheek, and I caught a whiff of her perfume, something expensive I'd probably paid for. "How was the fitting?" "Good. The tux is ordered. Should be ready by early September." "Perfect." She settled back, and I noticed she'd already ordered wine, the kind that runs about $40 a glass. Quinn only splurged on my dime when she wanted something. We made small talk through appetizers. She told me about Liam's, her fiancé's, latest business deal. She showed me fabric swatches for the bridesmaids' dresses. She complained about the florist, the caterer, the DJ search. Then, halfway through her entree, she set down her fork with a delicate clink. "So, Dad, there's something Liam and I need to discuss with you about the wedding." The way she said it, careful, measured, sent a warning signal through my surgeon's brain, the same instinct that used to alert me when something wasn't right during a procedure. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" "Well, we've been thinking about the ceremony traditions." She took a sip of wine, not meeting my eyes. "We've decided we want to do something different, more modern, less conventional." "Okay." I waited. Liam's father, Alan, has been so supportive through all of this. He's been like a second father to me already. And we thought it would be really meaningful if he walked me down the aisle instead of you. The restaurant didn't go silent. The world didn't stop. But something inside me did. Instead of me. "It's not personal, Dad. It's just—" She finally looked at me, and what I saw wasn't regret or sadness. It was calculation. "Let's be completely honest here. You're going to ruin my wedding photos." I blinked. "Excuse me." "Your face, Dad. That scar. It's too much. I'm paying Jasper Chen $8,000 to photograph this wedding. I can't have my pictures ruined because you're in them looking like—" She gestured vaguely at my face. "You know, like that." My hand moved automatically to my left cheek, tracing the familiar ridge of scar tissue. Funny how you can go years without thinking about something, and then suddenly it's all you can feel. "This scar is from the accident, when your mother died." "I know that, Dad. But this is my wedding day. My perfect day. Surely you can understand that I need everything to be flawless. The photos will be everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, the wedding website. They'll be framed in our house forever. I just can't risk it." I'd spent 30 years as a plastic surgeon, 3 decades helping people feel whole after accidents, cancer, burns. I'd reconstructed faces that had been through hell. I'd given people back their confidence. And here was my daughter telling me my face was too damaged for her wedding photos. The irony wasn't lost on me. Neither was the fact that I'd gotten this scar trying to save her mother's life. "Alan is excited about it," Quinn continued. "He's already told everyone at his country club. And honestly, Dad, he's been more of a father figure to me these past few months than—" She stopped, but we both knew how that sentence ended. "Than I have?" I finished. "That's not what I meant." But her eyes said otherwise. "You'll still be there, of course. We'll get you a good seat. 3rd row, probably. You'll have a great view. 3rd row, not even 2nd. 3rd. If that's what you want, I heard myself say. I knew you'd understand. She reached across and patted my hand, the same hand that had held hers when she took her first steps, that had signed every tuition check. You're the best, Dad. This is why I love you. You always put my happiness first. She glanced at her phone. I have to run. Meeting with the wedding planner in 15 minutes. I'll send you my Venmo for half the lunch. She kissed my cheek, the scarred one, and disappeared. I sat alone as the waiter brought the check. $137. I left $200. Money had never been the problem. My reflection stared back at me from the mirror wall. The scar looked more pronounced in this lighting. For 8 years, it had been a testament to survival. Now, through my daughter's eyes, all I could see was something ugly, something that ruined pictures. I touched it again, and beneath the hurt, I felt something else stirring, something cold and precise. The same feeling I used to get in the operating room when a surgery went sideways and I needed to think 3 steps ahead. Quinn had made a mistake today. She'd assumed I would just accept this, that I'd fade quietly into the 3rd row while someone else's father walked my daughter down the aisle. She'd forgotten I was a surgeon, that I'd spent decades learning patience, planning, precision, that I knew how to stay calm when things got messy. I paid the bill and walked out into the Portland afternoon. September 14th. Quinn's wedding day was exactly 3 months away. Time to start planning the most important operation of my life. The next few days passed in a fog. I went through the motions, watering the plants, checking my retirement portfolio, organizing my office, but I found myself avoiding mirrors. Every reflective surface became a reminder of Quinn's words. Your ugly face. You'll ruin my wedding photos. They echoed in my head like a misdiagnosis I couldn't shake. But here's the thing about being a surgeon for 3 decades. You learn to separate emotion from analysis. You learn to step back and look at the whole picture. And once I forced myself to do that, once I really looked at my relationship with Quinn, I started seeing patterns I'd been too close to notice before. A month ago, May 15th, Quinn called crying, real tears, the kind that cracked her voice in that way that had always shattered my defenses. Dad, emergency! The pipes burst in my apartment, water everywhere. The landlord says I need $15,000 for repairs right away, or I'll be liable for damage to the units below. I'd transferred the money within an hour. That's what fathers do, right? They protect. They provide. But when I stopped by her apartment a week later, everything looked identical. Same carpet, same walls, no water stains, no new drywall. Where did the money go, sweetheart? I'd asked, keeping my tone light. Her response had been immediate, practiced. Why do you always interrogate me? Why can't you just trust me? I'm 28 years old, Dad, not a child. You're so controlling. And I'd apologized, actually apologized, for asking about $15,000 that had vanished. Then there was Father's Day, June 18th. We'd always celebrated it together from the time she was little. It was our special thing. Breakfast at our favorite diner, then whatever I wanted to do. Just time together. This year I made reservations at the Chart House. I got there 15 minutes early, ordered coffee, waited. At 12:07 p.m., my phone buzzed. So sorry, Dad. Totally forgot. Booked a spa day with the girls weeks ago. You understand, right? I have to look perfect for the wedding. Next year for sure. Love you. I sat there for 30 minutes before ordering lunch, for one. The waiter kept glancing at the empty seat with poorly disguised pity. I tipped 40% because I felt bad for making him watch. But the memory that kept surfacing happened 3 months ago. March 20th. I'd found old photo albums in the attic, pictures from when Quinn was little, family vacations, holidays. I thought she might want them for the wedding. When I got to her apartment, the door was slightly ajar. I was about to knock when I heard her voice, talking on the phone. No, seriously, it's fine. He'll pay for it. He always pays. A pause, then laughter. Trust me, the guilt is still eating him alive. He survived the crash, and Mom didn't. It's been 8 years, and he still acts like he personally killed her. I could literally ask for $50,000 right now, and he'd send it within the hour. I stood frozen, photo albums clutched to my chest. Honestly, Having a father with survivor's guilt is like having an unlimited credit card. Best thing that ever happened to me. Well, not the accident itself, obviously. But the aftermath? Financial security for life. More laughter. Her laughter. My daughter's laughter. I'd left the albums by her door and walked away. I told myself I'd misheard, misunderstood. She was just joking, using dark humor to process trauma. Now, sitting in my study on June 20th, 5 days after the lunch, I finally let myself see the pattern. This wasn't about one cruel comment. This was systematic. My daughter had been manipulating me for years, weaponizing my grief with surgical precision. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank statements. 3 years of transactions, transfers to Quinn, $204 months, $400 her tuition, $87,000 study abroad, $33,000 emergency repairs, $15,000 on medical bills, $8,000 various emergencies, $4,400 monthly allowance, $50,000 plus the house I'd signed over, $450,000 or total investment, nearly $700,000. My phone buzzed. A text from Quinn. Dad, forgot to mention, need another $3K for the invitation engraving upgrade. Calligrapher says standard looks cheap. Can you Venmo today? Thy ex. I stared at that message. At the casual entitlement, the assumption, $3,000 for engraving on invitations to a wedding where I'd sit in the third row while another man walked my daughter down the aisle because my face ruined pictures. My fingers moved. Of course, honey. Whatever you need for your perfect day. Immediate response. Best dad ever! But as I initiated the transfer, something had shifted. The hurt was still there, raw and aching, but it was being joined by something else. Something that felt like the cold focus I used to get in the operating room right before making the first incision. That moment when emotion had to be set aside and precision became everything. I'd agree to everything Quinn wanted. I'd smile and nod and pay for every detail. I'd let Alan O'Connor walk my daughter down the aisle while I sat like a tolerated guest. I wouldn't fight, wouldn't argue, wouldn't give her any reason to suspect something had changed, but I'd also start paying attention, real attention, because a good surgeon knows that before you can fix a problem, you need to understand exactly what you're dealing with. You need all the information, every symptom, every complication. I transferred the $3,000. Then I opened a new document. At the top, wedding timeline, September 14th, 2025. Below that, observations and questions. Time to start taking notes. Because if 30 years of surgery had taught me anything, it was this. The most successful operations are the ones where you've anticipated every possible complication before you make the first cut. And I was about to perform the most important operation of my life. July 3rd, Independence Day. The irony wasn't lost on me, celebrating freedom while feeling increasingly trapped by my own daughter's manipulation. I'd spent the entire morning preparing for our traditional 4th of July barbecue. It was something we'd done every year since Quinn was 5 years old. Back deck, grilled burgers, homemade potato salad, corn on the cob, simple. Family, ours. Quinn had promised she'd be here at noon. Just us, Dad, like old times, she'd said on the phone 2 weeks ago. I'd heard something in her voice that sounded almost genuine, and I'd let myself hope. By 2 o'clock, the burgers were cold. The potato salad was warm. The corn had that sad, dried-out look that comes from sitting too long. At 2:47 p.m., I heard car doors slamming. Multiple car doors. I walked to the front window and felt my stomach drop. Quinn's white BMW, Liam's black Tesla, and a silver Mercedes I recognized from the country club parking lot, Alan O'Connor's car. They came through the gate like a parade. Quinn in a designer sundress that probably cost more than my first car. Liam in casual wear that somehow still looked expensive. Alan and his wife Catherine both dressed like they were attending a garden party at the governor's mansion. Dad! Sorry we're late, Quinn breezed past me, not even attempting a hug. We stopped at Alan and Catherine's first. You know how it is. Actually, I didn't know, because she'd told me this was supposed to be just us. I hope you don't mind that we brought company, she continued, though her tone made it clear she didn't actually care if I minded. She surveyed the spread on the deck table, and her nose wrinkled slightly. Dad, why didn't you just hire a caterer? This looks so homemade. It is homemade, I said evenly. like always. Yes, well, she glanced at Alan, who was surveying my modest back deck with the expression of someone touring a historical poverty exhibit. Liam's family is used to something more polished. Alan extended his hand, his grip firm and competitive. George, good to see you. Catherine and I were just telling Quinn about the rehearsal dinner we're planning at the Columbia Gorge Hotel. 200 guests, full orchestra. It's going to be spectacular. Sounds expensive, I said. Oh, cost is no object when it comes to our boy's happiness. He clapped Liam on the shoulder. Liam had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. And Quinn's become like a daughter to us already. Haven't you, sweetheart? Quinn beamed at him. Actually beamed. When was the last time she'd looked at me like that? We sat down to eat. I'd reheated the burgers, but they'd lost that fresh off-the-grill taste. Nobody seemed to notice, probably because nobody except me was really eating. Quinn picked at her potato salad. Catherine made a show of being vegetarian. Alan dominated the conversation. You know, George, I have to tell you, I'm honored that Quinn and Liam asked me to walk her down the aisle. He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. It's quite a responsibility, quite a privilege. I watched Quinn over the rim of my beer. She was studying her phone, not meeting my eyes. When my daughter Catherine got married, that's Liam's sister, I walked her down the aisle, and let me tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the church. I've been practicing my toast for weeks. I want to make sure Quinn gets the father of the bride moment she deserves. Father of the bride, that's what I was supposed to be. It's really beautiful what you're doing, Alan, Quinn said softly, taking on that role when... She trailed off, glancing at me with something that might have been pity. When some people aren't up to it. The conversation moved on. Business, golf, the wedding venue, the honeymoon in Bali. Every topic carefully selected to exclude me or highlight my inadequacies. I sat there, the ghost at my own barbecue. Around 5 o'clock, they started gathering their things to leave. Quinn kissed my cheek perfunctorily. Thanks for lunch, Dad. Next time, maybe just order from somewhere? This whole DIY thing is sweet, but it's kind of exhausting for you, right? I stood at the door watching them leave. Alan had his arm around Quinn's shoulders, saying something that made her laugh. That should have been my arm. That should have been my moment. I was cleaning up the deck when I heard voices from the driveway. The cars were still there. Someone must have forgotten something. I moved closer to the fence. Your dad's nice enough, Liam was saying. Quiet, but nice. Oh, he's fine, Quinn's voice, casual, dismissive. He's just, a retired plastic surgeon, nothing special. Not like your dad. Alan's actually built something impressive. He's interesting. He has stories. My dad just has that scar and a pension. I stood there, frozen, holding a plate of leftover burgers. Your dad seems like he really cares about you, Liam said. Quinn laughed. He cares about making himself feel better about surviving the accident. Trust me, everything he does is about his guilt, not about me. The cars pulled away. I stood in my empty backyard, surrounded by the remnants of a tradition she'd just used as a stage for her new family. The family where I'd been demoted from father to ATM with a scar. I threw the burgers in the trash and went inside. On my laptop, I opened the document I'd started. Wedding timeline. Under July 3rd, I typed, Independence Day barbecue. Quinn arrived 3 hours late with O'Connor family. No apology. Criticized the food. Alan discussed walking her down aisle at length. Performative humiliation. Quinn told Liam, I'm nothing special. Confirmed. Not just about the scar. She's ashamed of everything I am. I stared at that entry for a long time. Then I added, financial outlay for today. $247. Food and supplies. Return on investment. Clarity. Because that's what this was giving me. Painful, surgical clarity. Every small cut revealing the full picture of what my relationship with my daughter had become. July 24th. 3 weeks until the wedding. I'd been keeping my distance from Quinn, responding to her texts with efficiency rather than enthusiasm. She didn't seem to notice the difference. I had a meeting at Bloom and Petal, the florist shop on NW 23rd. Quinn had sent me a message 2 days earlier. Dad, can you finalize the flower order? I'm swamped with dress fittings. Just approve whatever Greta suggests. You're paying anyway. LOL? The shop smelled like roses and something citrusy I couldn't identify. Greta Miller, the owner, greeted me with the kind of warm smile that made me remember there were still kind people in the world. Mr. Wilson, perfect timing. I've got the revised proposals ready. She was a woman in her early 50s with gray-streaked hair and paint-stained fingers. Apparently, she did watercolor arrangements in her spare time. We went through the options. Peonies for the centerpieces, roses for the bouquets, some kind of orchid situation for the ceremony arch. The numbers were staggering. So the total comes to 12,000, Greta said, clicking through her tablet. That's with the rush fee for the timeline change, of course. I paused. Timeline change? Oh, yes. When Quinn came in, must have been about 3 weeks ago, she was in quite a state, begging me to move everything up by a month. Poor thing was nearly in tears. Said she couldn't wait any longer. Greta smiled indulgently. Young love, you know. So impatient. My surgeon's brain started calculating. 3 weeks ago was early July. The wedding had originally been planned for October 14th, 6 months from when Quinn and Liam started dating in April. Now it was September 14th, 5 months from their start date. Did she say why she couldn't wait? I kept my voice neutral. Oh, you know how brides are. Everything has to be perfect, and exactly when they want it. Greta laughed, then leaned in conspiratorially. Though between you and me, I think I know the real reason. I waited. I've seen Quinn coming out of the women's health clinic across the street. Twice now. The one that does prenatal care. Greta's eyes sparkled with joy. I bet she wants to have the wedding before she's showing. How wonderful that you're going to be a grandfather. Though I'm sure you're not supposed to know yet. She probably wants to announce it at the reception. The flowers in front of me blurred slightly. Women's health clinic, prenatal care. Timeline moved up. That's wonderful, I managed. I signed the contract, approved the $12,000, and walked out into the Portland afternoon. The clinic was right there, across the street. White brick. Discreet signage. I'd driven past it 100 times without really seeing it. I sat in my car and did the math. Quinn and Liam started dating in April, 4 months ago. If Quinn was already showing enough to worry about it, she had to be at least 4 or 5 months along, which meant... My phone buzzed. A text from Quinn. Did you approve the flowers? Greta says they're perfect. You're the best. I stared at that message. Then I scrolled back through our texts, looking for something I'd seen a month ago. There, June 20th. I'd stopped by Quinn's apartment with some mail, and while she was in the bathroom, her phone had lit up on the counter. A text from X. I miss you so much. Can't stop thinking about what we had. When Quinn came out, I'd mentioned it. She'd grabbed the phone quickly, face flushing. Oh, that's just Xavier. Old friend from the gym. He's going through a breakup and getting weird. I should probably block him. Xavier. X. I pulled out my laptop and opened Facebook, searching Portland gyms and trainers. It took me 20 minutes, but I found him. Xavier Rodriguez, 29, personal trainer at Elevate Fitness on Burnside. And there, if you scrolled back far enough in his photos, was Quinn. Multiple photos, his arm around her, her kissing his cheek. The most recent from January with his caption, My Queen. I sat there in the florist's parking lot, pieces falling into place with the clinical precision of a diagnosis. Quinn had been dating Xavier. She got pregnant. She broke up with him, probably when she found out about the pregnancy. Started dating Liam, the wealthy venture capitalist, in April. Rushed the wedding timeline. Planned to pass off Xavier's baby as Liam's. And Liam, decent Liam, with his traditional Irish Catholic family, and his genuine excitement about starting a family, had no idea. My phone rang. Quinn's face filled the screen. A photo from 3 years ago when she still smiled at me like I mattered. Hey, Dad! Quick question. Can you cover the calligrapher upgrade? It's only another $2,000. The invitations need to be perfect. Of course, I heard myself say. You're the best. Love you. Gotta run. Meeting Liam's family for dinner. She hung up before I could respond. I looked at Xavier's photo on my screen, then at the women's health clinic, then at my reflection in the rearview mirror, the scar that made me too ugly for wedding photos staring back at me. Quinn wasn't just ashamed of me. She wasn't just using me for money. She was building an entire life on a lie, trapping an innocent man into raising another man's child, all while treating me like an embarrassing inconvenience she had to manage. I opened my laptop and added to the timeline. July 24th. Discovered Quinn is pregnant, approximately 4 or 5 months. Dating Liam only 4 months. Probable father Xavier Rodriguez. Personal trainer, former boyfriend. Quinn moved wedding timeline up to hide pregnancy timing. Liam doesn't know. Then I opened a new document and titled it Evidence Collection. Because if 30 years of medicine had taught me anything, it was this. You don't perform surgery without a complete diagnosis, and you don't make the first cut until you're absolutely certain of what you're dealing with. I was certain now, and it was time to start planning the procedure. The 2 weeks after my discovery at the florist shop were the longest of my life. I moved through them like a surgeon preparing for a complex operation, methodical, focused, gathering every piece of information I'd need. I didn't hire a private investigator. 30 years in medicine had taught me to trust my own analytical mind. Besides, this was personal. August 1st, I needed to know more about Xavier, the ex in Quinn's phone, the man whose baby she was carrying while preparing to marry Liam. Andrea Thompson was listed on the wedding program, playing piano during the ceremony. Quinn had mentioned her before. A casual acquaintance. Nothing deep. Perfect. I found her contact through the wedding planner's email and sent a message. Hi, Andrea. I'm George, Quinn's father. Would love to buy you coffee and hear about the music selections. Want to make sure everything's perfect for my girl. She agreed immediately. We met at a cafe in the Pearl District. Andrea was late 20s, artistic-looking with paint-stained fingers and an easy smile. She ordered an elaborate latte and dove into discussing Bach versus Pachelbel. I let her talk, waiting. Then casually, Quinn seems so happy with Liam. Wonderful to see her settled after. Well, you know how dating is these days. Andrea laughed. Oh, absolutely. I'm just glad she finally moved on from Xavier. That whole thing was such a mess. I kept my expression neutral. Xavier? Her ex? The personal trainer? Andrea stirred her latte. They were together for like a year. Super intense, but honestly, he was all looks and no substance. Just wanted to work out and talk about protein shakes. Quinn needed someone with actual ambition. When did they break up? Oh, let me think. April? Maybe late March. It was sudden. Like one day they're together. The next day, Quinn's deleting all his photos and saying she's done with gym guys. Andrea leaned in. Between you and me, I think she realized she wanted someone more established. Liam's perfect, successful, mature, from a good family. Much better match. April. Right when Quinn started dating Liam. That must have been hard for Xavier, I said carefully. Andrea shrugged. I guess. Quinn blocked him pretty fast. But honestly, Liam's such an upgrade. He's going to make an amazing husband and father someday. Father. The word hung between us. I thanked her, paid for both coffees, and left. In my car, I added to my timeline, August 1st, confirmed via Andrea. Quinn dated Xavier Rodriguez. Approximately 1 year. Broke up suddenly late March/early April. Timeline coincides with beginning of relationship with Liam. 10 days later, August 10th, I found Xavier's social media. Xavier Rodriguez, personal trainer, Elevate Fitness on Burnside. His Instagram was public. Thousands of followers, mostly fitness content. Shirtless photos, workout videos, motivational quotes. I scrolled back through months. There, January through March. Multiple photos of Quinn, his arm around her at a restaurant, her kissing his cheek at what looked like a birthday party, both of them laughing after a workout. The captions were painfully earnest. My motivation, she makes every day better. Lucky doesn't begin to describe it. The last photo of them together was dated March 19th. Xavier's arm around Quinn at the beach. His caption, my queen forever, grateful for this one. After that, nothing. No more Quinn, just solo workout content and generic inspiration posts. I did the math. March 19th was approximately 5 months ago. If Quinn was showing enough now to want to move the wedding up, she had to be at least 4, probably 5 months pregnant, which meant she was already pregnant, or about to be, when Xavier posted that photo. I sat in my study, staring at the screen. The pieces arranged themselves with brutal clarity. Quinn got pregnant by Xavier in late February or early March. Discovered the pregnancy in March. Immediately broke up with Xavier. Probably didn't tell him about the baby. Started dating Liam, the wealthy venture capitalist, in April. Moved the wedding timeline up so she could marry before showing. Planned to pass off Xavier's baby as Liam's. And Liam, good-hearted Liam, who cried at romantic movies and wanted to be a father, had no idea he was being used as paternity cover. My phone buzzed. Quinn. Dad, caterer needs final payment, $8K. Can you handle it? I'm slammed with dress alterations. Dress alterations, because she was pregnant and hiding it. I transferred the $8,000. Then I opened a new document. Evidence collection. I took screenshots of Xavier's Instagram. Photos, dates, captions. I made a timeline. January, March. Quinn dating Xavier. Documented. Late February, early March. Conception calculated. March 19th. Last photo. Together. April. Quinn starts dating. Liam, July. Quinn panics. Moves wedding up 1 month. Current. Quinn approximately 4 or 5 months pregnant. I cross-referenced with medical facts. By month 5, most women have a visible bump. Quinn was racing against time. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent my career reconstructing bodies, helping people present their best selves. My daughter was doing the same, but reconstructing her entire life story, and an innocent man was about to pay the price. I printed everything. Photos, timeline, medical calculations, locked them in my desk drawer. Then I sat in the dark and wondered what kind of father I'd become. August 15th through 25th were the hardest 10 days of my life. I walked through the house Quinn had grown up in, the house I'd signed over to her 2 years ago in a moment of sentimental weakness. Every room held memories. Her first steps in the living room, teaching her to ride a bike in the driveway, her mother's laugh echoing through the kitchen. But it wasn't my house anymore. It was Quinn's. Another thing I'd given her that she'd accepted without gratitude, like it was simply her due. I sat at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning, drinking coffee I didn't need, thinking about choices. Because that's what this came down to, a choice. Not between right and wrong, that was clear enough, but between my daughter and doing what was right. If I stayed silent, Liam would marry Quinn thinking the baby was his. He'd raise another man's child, never knowing the truth. Quinn would have her perfect life, her wealthy husband, her Instagram-ready family. And I would remain her convenient ATM, watching from the third row of her carefully constructed lie. If I spoke up, I'd lose Quinn forever. There would be no coming back from this, no forgiveness, no reconciliation. She'd hate me until the day I died. Some choice. August 20th, I drove to Lisa Hart's office. My attorney, 52 years old, sharp as a scalpel and twice as precise. George, she greeted me with a firm handshake. What brings you in? I laid out the situation, all of it. The wedding, the scar, the pregnancy, the timeline, the evidence. Lisa listened without interrupting, her face neutral, in that way lawyers have. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to do? She finally asked. Tell me about the house. She pulled up files on her computer. You signed it over to Quinn 2 years ago. Full transfer of ownership. Legally, it's hers. Can I get it back? On what grounds? The transfer was made under false pretenses. She manipulated my grief and guilt, used my emotional state to extract assets. Lisa considered this. Oregon law does allow for reversal of gifts in cases of fraud or undue influence. With the evidence you're gathering of her pattern of manipulation, she tapped her pen against her desk. It's possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. You'd need to prove sustained manipulation and that the gift wouldn't have been made otherwise. Start preparing the paperwork, I said, but don't file yet. George, Lisa's voice softened slightly. Are you sure about this? Once you start down this path, I know, I cut her off. I know exactly what this means. She nodded. I'll have everything ready. Just say the word. I left her office and drove aimlessly through Portland, past the hospital where I'd worked for 30 years, past the park where I'd taught Quinn to throw a baseball, past the restaurant where she'd told me my face would ruin her wedding photos. August 25th, 3 weeks until the wedding, I made my decision. I would tell the truth at the wedding, during the reception when the moment presented itself. Not out of revenge. I kept telling myself that, though I wasn't entirely sure I believed it. But Liam deserved to know. He deserved the truth before he legally became the father of another man's child. Quinn would never forgive me. I accepted that. But I couldn't let her destroy an innocent man's life just to maintain her perfect Instagram aesthetic. I spent the next week gathering final pieces of evidence. I made copies of everything: the Instagram photos, the timeline, the medical calculations showing pregnancy dates. I put them in an envelope with a typed summary. Clean, professional, irrefutable. I even practiced what I'd say, standing in my empty living room, imagining 200 guests staring at me, imagining Quinn's face, Liam's confusion, the moment everything would shatter. Liam, I practiced, my voice steady, I'm sorry it has to be like this, but you deserve to know the truth before you become a husband and father. Simple, direct, no drama. My phone rang constantly. Quinn with last-minute wedding demands. She needed more money for the band upgrade, for the champagne fountain, for the custom napkins with their initials. I said yes to everything, transferred the funds without complaint, because I knew, and she didn't, that these were the last times she'd ever ask me for anything. September 1st, 2 weeks before the wedding, Quinn came by the house to pick up some boxes she'd stored in the garage. "Dad, you look tired," she said, barely glancing at me. "You're not going to be all exhausted and sad at my wedding, are you? I need you to at least look presentable for the photos. Well, the group photos in the back, where you can't really see faces." I smiled. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll make sure this day is exactly what you deserve." She kissed my cheek, the scarred one, always the scarred one, and left. I stood in the driveway watching her drive away in the BMW I'd helped her buy. And I thought about justice, about truth, about the difference between being a good father and being a doormat. I thought about Liam, who'd done nothing wrong except fall in love with the wrong woman, and I thought about Quinn, who'd learned to weaponize my love and guilt with surgical precision. September 5th, 9 days until the wedding, I finalized my toast, printed copies of the evidence, bought a nice envelope. In my study, I looked at everything laid out on my desk: the proof of Quinn's deception, the end of my relationship with my daughter, the truth that would destroy her wedding and possibly her entire future. I should have felt doubt, guilt, something. Instead, I felt the same cold clarity I used to feel in the operating room. When you've identified the problem, when you have the tools, when you know exactly what needs to be done, you don't hesitate. You make the cut. I placed everything in my jacket pocket, rehearsed the words one final time, and accepted that in 9 days I would lose my daughter to save a stranger. Some prices are worth paying, even when they cost everything you have left. September 7th, 1 week until the wedding. My phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m. "Quinn, of course." "Dad, emergency. The venue coordinator says we need an extra $5,000 for the lounge area upgrade. Can you transfer it today, please?" I was already awake, sitting at my kitchen table with coffee and the envelope containing evidence of my daughter's deception. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll handle it. You're a lifesaver. Oh, and the band needs another $2,000 for the extended set. I'll text you the details." She hung up before I could respond. $7,000 before breakfast. I opened my laptop and made the transfers, then added them to my financial spreadsheet. Total wedding expenses to date, $287,400. The calls kept coming. Every day, sometimes multiple times a day. September 8th. "Dad, the champagne fountain costs more than we thought. Another $3,000? September 9th. "Dad, I need custom gift bags for the guests. Just $4,000. Last thing, I promise." I said yes to everything. Transferred every dollar she asked for. Because I knew something Quinn didn't. These were the last transactions we'd ever have. September 10th, late afternoon. Quinn showed up at the house unannounced, not to visit, to collect boxes of her old belongings she'd been storing in the garage. She breezed in wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater that almost, but not quite, hid the small bump at her midsection. 5 months pregnant, by my calculation. The wedding dress had probably required significant alterations. "Dad, you look exhausted," she said, barely glancing at me as she headed for the garage. "Are you sleeping? You can't look all worn out at my wedding. Well, I mean, you'll be in the back of the photos anyway, but still." I followed her to the garage, watching as she sorted through boxes. Just haven't been sleeping well. Wedding nerves, I guess. She laughed. That bright, dismissive laugh I'd come to recognize as her tell for when she thought someone was being ridiculous. You're nervous? It's not even your wedding, Dad. No, I said quietly. It's not. She found what she was looking for, some old photo albums, and straightened up. That's when she really looked at me. Dad, seriously, you're not going to be all sad and weird at the wedding, are you? Because I need this day to be perfect. Absolutely. Perfect. No drama. Don't worry, I said, meeting her eyes. I'll make sure this day is exactly what you deserve. Her face brightened. See? This is why you're the best. I know I can always count on you. She walked over and kissed my cheek. The scarred one, always the scarred one. You're like my favorite ATM, reliable, always there when I need you. She laughed at her own joke. Then, as if remembering something from a script, I mean best dad. Best dad in the world. I stood in the driveway watching her load boxes into her BMW, the car I'd co-signed for, the insurance I still paid, the gas card in my name. She waved cheerfully as she drove away. Love you, Dad. See you at the wedding. I went inside and took the envelope from my desk drawer, spread its contents across the kitchen table. Photos of Xavier and Quinn, timeline documentation, medical pregnancy calculations, social media screenshots with dates and captions, a typed summary explaining how a 4-month relationship couldn't produce a 5-month pregnancy. I'd rehearsed what I'd say 100 times, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, sitting in my car, walking through the empty house at 3 a.m. Liam, I'm sorry it has to be like this, but you deserve to know the truth. Simple, direct, devastating. September 11th through 13th were the longest 72 hours of my life. I barely slept, barely ate, just kept replaying the moment in my head, walking to the microphone, pulling out the envelope, watching Quinn's face as she realized what was about to happen. Part of me, a small, persistent part, kept whispering that I should stop, that I should stay silent, that losing my daughter forever wasn't worth it. But then I'd think about Liam, decent, kind Liam who talked about wanting to be a good father like his dad, who cried during their vows rehearsal, who had no idea he was about to legally claim paternity of another man's child. And I'd think about Quinn's words, you're like my favorite ATM, not father, ATM. September 13th, the night before the wedding. My phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Quinn, Dad, I just wanted to say, her voice sounded strange, softer. Thank you. For everything. For paying for the wedding. For not making a big deal about the aisle walking thing. For just being there. For a moment, one brief, painful moment, I almost believed she meant it. I know I haven't been the easiest daughter, she continued, but tomorrow's going to be perfect. I can feel it. Everything's finally coming together exactly how it's supposed to. Yes, I said, my voice steady. Tomorrow will definitely be memorable. Get some sleep, Dad. Big day tomorrow. She hung up. I sat in the dark, holding my phone, and wondered if that was the last time my daughter would ever speak to me with something resembling affection. I checked the envelope one final time. Everything was there. Everything was ready. Tomorrow I would stand up in front of 200 people and destroy my daughter's perfect day. Her perfect plan, her perfect lie. Tomorrow I would choose a stranger's future over my own daughter. Tomorrow justice would cost me everything. I placed the envelope in my jacket pocket and went to bed, though I knew I wouldn't sleep. Some operations you prepare for meticulously, but when the moment comes to make the cut, no amount of preparation can stop your hand from shaking. September 14th, 2:47 p.m. The Sentinel Hotel in downtown Portland was everything Quinn had dreamed of. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 200 guests in designer clothes, sipping champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's monthly rent. I stood in the lobby in my charcoal tuxedo, the one from that fitting 3 months ago that felt like a lifetime. My hand kept drifting to my jacket pocket, feeling the envelope's familiar outline. A coordinator with a clipboard and an earpiece approached me. Mr. Wilson, we're seating guests now. You're in row 3, aisle seat. Row 3, not row 1, where the father of the bride should sit. Row 3, behind Liam's college roommates. Perfect, I said. The ceremony room was breathtaking. White roses everywhere. $12,000 worth per Greta's invoice. Silk ribbons. String quartet playing pachelbel. Every detail perfect. Curated. Instagram ready. I took my seat and watched the room fill. Portland's elite. Venture capitalists in $1,000 suits. Social media influencers positioning themselves for the best photo angles. Alan O'Connor's business partners. Liam's family. All looking like they'd stepped out of a Ralph Lauren catalog. The O'Connors sat in the first row, of course. Alan in an impeccable tuxedo. His wife Catherine in cream-colored silk. They looked proud, excited, like they were gaining a daughter, which technically they were, just not the one they thought. 3 p.m. The music changed, everyone stood, and there was Quinn. She looked stunning. The $15,000 dress fit perfectly. High waist, flowing skirt, designed to look elegant while concealing her pregnancy. Her makeup flawless, her smile radiant, every inch the perfect bride. Alan O'Connor walked beside her, his arm linked through hers, beaming like he'd won the lottery. As they passed my row, Quinn's eyes never even flickered in my direction. She was focused entirely on Liam, who stood at the altar with tears already streaming down his face. My throat tightened. Not for Quinn. For Liam. Poor, unsuspecting Liam, who thought this was the happiest day of his life. The ceremony was beautiful. The officiant spoke about love, commitment, building a future together. Liam's vows were heartfelt. He talked about wanting to be the kind of husband his father was, about dreaming of the family they'd build, about promises that would last forever. Quinn's vows were shorter, more polished, like she'd workshopped them for maximum emotional impact, with minimum personal revelation. I promise to love you always, she said, her voice steady and clear, to build the life we've dreamed of, to give you everything you deserve. The irony was almost too much to bear. I now pronounce you husband and wife. The room erupted in applause. Liam pulled Quinn into a kiss that was enthusiastic and genuine. She smiled and waved at the crowd like she'd just won an award. The recessional was a blur. Photos. Champagne. Congratulations from strangers. I stood apart, watching, waiting. The envelope in my pocket felt like it weighed 10 pounds. During the cocktail hour, I found myself cornered by some of Liam's business associates, who wanted to talk about the economy. I nodded along, barely hearing them. Across the room, I watched Alan O'Connor give his official toast as the father figure who'd walked Quinn down the aisle. Today I didn't just give away a bride, Alan said, raising his glass. I gained a daughter, and while it's unfortunate that Quinn's biological father... He paused, glancing at me with something between pity and disdain. Wasn't able to fulfill this traditional role. I'm honored to have stepped in. To Quinn and Liam. The room cheered. I raised my glass with everyone else, my smile fixed and empty. 6:30 p.m. Dinner service began. I was seated at a table near the back, not at the head table with Quinn and Liam, not even at a family table. I was with some distant relatives of the O'Connors, who seemed confused about why I wasn't sitting somewhere more prominent. "Aren't you the bride's father?" one elderly woman asked. "Yes," I said simply. "Oh." She looked uncomfortable and didn't ask any follow-up questions. Between courses there were toasts. The maid of honor told stories about Quinn's college days. Liam's best man made jokes about bachelor parties and settling down. Everyone laughed at the right moments, clinked glasses, took photos. Quinn looked happy, radiant even. She kept touching her stomach in that unconscious way pregnant women do, and I wondered if anyone else noticed, if anyone else had done the math. 7:30 p.m. The DJ announced that the father-daughter dance would be replaced with a special tribute dance, featuring Quinn and Alan. They swayed to My Girl while everyone took photos and cooed about how sweet it was. I watched from my table in the back, my hand in my pocket, fingers touching the envelope. Not yet. Soon. 8 p.m. More toasts, more champagne. The energy in the room was building, that happy, tipsy wedding energy where everyone's in love with love, and the world feels perfect. I checked my watch. Any minute now, the coordinator would open up the floor for additional toasts. Anyone who wanted to say a few words. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure people at my table could hear it. The envelope in my pocket contained the truth. In a few minutes I would stand up, walk to that microphone, and detonate my daughter's entire life. There would be no coming back from this, no forgiveness, no second chances. But Liam deserved the truth, and Quinn deserved the consequences of her choices. I took a deep breath and waited for my moment. 8:15 p.m. The moment arrived faster than I expected. The DJ's voice cut through the chatter. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special surprise. The father of the bride, George Wilson, would like to say a few words. I watched Quinn's face across the room. Her smile froze. She turned to Liam, confusion flickering in her eyes. She hadn't put me on the speaker list. Liam looked equally puzzled, but smiled encouragingly at her. He probably thought it was a sweet surprise. I stood, feeling the envelope's weight in my jacket pocket. The walk to the microphone felt like walking to an execution. Mine or Quinn's, I wasn't sure. 200 faces turned toward me, expectant, happy, tipsy on expensive champagne and the romance of it all. I took the microphone. My hand was steady. 30 years of surgery had taught me that once you commit to the cut, you don't hesitate. Good evening, everyone. My voice carried clearly through the speakers. Thank you for letting me share a few words on this memorable occasion. Quinn was watching me intently now, that nervous smile fixed on her face. Quinn is my only daughter. 8 years ago, when my wife passed away, Quinn became my entire world. I dedicated everything to her happiness. I paused, letting that sink in. I paid for her education, $120,000. I gave her our family home, worth $450,000. I gave her everything I had, everything I was. People were nodding, thinking this was a touching father-daughter moment. Even Quinn had relaxed slightly, probably thinking I was just being sentimental. 3 months ago, Quinn told me something I'll never forget. I touched the scar on my face. She said I couldn't walk her down the aisle because my ugly face would ruin her wedding photos. The room went still. You could have heard a pin drop on that marble floor. This scar, I continued, my voice even, I got it in a car accident 8 years ago. The same accident where I tried and failed to save my wife's life, Quinn's mother. Quinn had gone pale. I could see her across the room, frozen in her chair. But you know what? That's not even the worst part. I pulled the envelope from my pocket, because I've learned that sometimes the ugliest things aren't visible on the surface. Dad. Quinn stood up, her voice sharp with warning. I looked directly at Liam. I'm sorry it has to be like this, son, but you deserve to know the truth before your life changes forever. I opened the envelope and pulled out the printouts, the photos, the timeline, the medical calculations. I held them up so the closest guests could see. Quinn is pregnant, but here's what she hasn't told you, Liam. The baby isn't yours. The room erupted, gasps, shocked exclamations, the scraping of chairs as people stood to get a better view. That's not true, Quinn shrieked. Dad, stop this! But I continued, my voice cutting through the chaos. You and Quinn have been together for 4 months, but Quinn is 5 months pregnant. The father is Xavier Rodriguez, her ex-boyfriend, a personal trainer she dated for a year before she met you. Liam stood up slowly, his face blank with shock. He reached for the papers in my hand. I gave them to him. I have the social media posts, dated and time-stamped. Photos of Quinn and Xavier together 5 months ago. Medical calculations showing conception dates. A complete timeline. Liam's hand shook as he flipped through the pages. Photos of Quinn kissing Xavier. Screenshots of Xavier's captions, "My Queen." Timeline showing their relationship continued through March, right when Quinn got pregnant. His face transformed as he read, from confusion to comprehension to something that looked like grief. Liam, baby, please. Quinn reached for him, but he stepped back. Is this true? His voice was barely a whisper, but in the dead silence of the room, everyone heard it. Quinn's perfect composure shattered. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her flawless makeup. I can explain. Is it true? Liam's voice cracked. She opened her mouth, but no words came out, and in that silence, everyone got their answer. Liam looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time. Then he pulled off his wedding ring and set it carefully on the table. We're done, he said quietly. Quinn lunged toward me, her face twisted with rage. How could you do this to me? You destroyed everything. I met her eyes calmly. The whole room was watching us now, this final confrontation between father and daughter. No, Quinn, I said softly. You destroyed this yourself. I just stopped you from destroying him too. Alan O'Connor was on his feet, his face red with fury. This is outrageous. You couldn't handle being replaced, So I told the truth, I cut him off. Something your son deserved to hear before he became the legal father of another man's child. Catherine O'Connor had her hand over her mouth, staring at Quinn with horror. Other guests were pulling out their phones, recording, texting, posting. Quinn's perfect Instagram wedding was becoming a viral scandal in real time. Andrea, Quinn's pianist friend, sat frozen with her hands over her face. She'd known. I could see it in her eyes. She'd known and said nothing. Quinn collapsed into her chair, sobbing. I hate you. I hate you so much. I know, I said, but someone had to stop you. Liam walked out. His parents followed. Then other guests started leaving, some awkwardly avoiding eye contact, others whispering furiously to each other. Within 20 minutes, the reception hall was half empty. I stood there holding my evidence, watching my daughter's perfect day crumble around her, watching everything I'd sacrificed for materialize into consequences she finally couldn't manipulate her way out of. Justice wasn't supposed to feel this hollow. September 15th, the morning after. My phone rang at 7:23 a.m. Quinn, I almost didn't answer. You ruined my life, she was screaming, crying, barely coherent. Everyone knows. It's all over social media. My friends won't answer my calls. Liam's filing for annulment. I know, I said quietly. You're supposed to love me. You're supposed to protect me. Instead, you... Her voice broke into sobs. I did protect someone, Quinn. Just not you. I'll never forgive you for this. Never. You're dead to me. I know, I said again, and I meant it. I'd known this was the price when I walked to that microphone. She hung up. That was the last time my daughter spoke to me with anything resembling emotion that wasn't pure hatred. September 16th, Lisa Hart called. Liam's attorney filed the annulment papers. Oregon law allows it within 72 hours if the marriage was obtained through fraud. This qualifies. Good, I said. He deserves better. George, are you ready to proceed with the house? I looked around at the empty rooms, the house Quinn thought she owned, the house I'd given her in a moment of grief and guilt. Yes, file the paperwork. September 20th. The lawsuit was filed. Reversal of gift due to undue influence and systematic manipulation. With the evidence of Quinn's pattern of deception, the false emergency repairs, the emotional manipulation, the pregnancy fraud, my attorney felt confident. Quinn's lawyer tried to fight it, but Oregon law was clear, and the evidence was overwhelming. October 15th, the court ruled in my favor. The house was mine again. Quinn had 30 days to vacate. I drove past one afternoon and saw boxes stacked on the porch. Quinn's BMW was gone. I didn't stop. There was nothing left to say. October 27th, she called one final time, not to yell, not to beg, just to arrange the final pickup of her belongings. I waited outside when she arrived. She was visibly pregnant now, the bump unmistakable under her loose clothing. Xavier was with her, the fitness trainer from Instagram, looking uncomfortable and out of place in my driveway. They loaded boxes in silence. I watched from the porch, keeping my distance. When they finished, Quinn walked to where I stood. For a moment, I thought she might say something. Apologize. Explain. Something. Instead, she just stared at me with pure hatred in her eyes. I looked back at her, this woman who used to be my little girl, and said the only thing left to say, respect isn't bought with money, but it's lost forever with a single phrase. She understood. I could see it in her face. The memory of her words about my ugly face ruining her photos. The moment she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. She turned without speaking and walked away. Xavier followed, one hand protectively on her back. They drove off, and I went inside my reclaimed house. Alone. November 2025. The house feels bigger now, emptier. I've removed most of Quinn's childhood things, packed them away in the attic where they belong, with other memories of a person who doesn't exist anymore. I saw on social media, yes, I looked, that Liam got married. To someone else. A quiet ceremony. Private. He looked happy in the photos. I'm glad. He deserved his happiness. Quinn gave birth to a son in early November. Xavier apparently decided to step up when he learned about the baby. They're living together in a small apartment across town. No Instagram perfect wedding photos. No wealthy venture capitalist husband. Just reality, finally catching up with her carefully constructed lies. I should feel vindicated, triumphant, victorious. Instead, I feel empty. I made the right choice. I know that. Liam deserved the truth. Quinn needed to face consequences for her actions. Justice was served, but justice cost me my daughter. On quiet nights, I sit in this house, the one I fought to reclaim, and wonder if the victory was worth the price. I look at old photos sometimes. Quinn as a little girl, laughing on my shoulders. Quinn graduating college, so proud. Quinn before she learned that her father's love could be weaponized for profit. I don't regret what I did, but I grieve what I lost. Sometimes I touch the scar on my face, the one Quinn called ugly, and remember why I have it. I got it trying to save someone I loved. Maybe that's what I was doing at the wedding, too. Trying to save someone, just not the person I'd spent 64 years protecting. The mirror in my hallway reflects my face, scar, and all. I look at it differently now, not with shame or self-consciousness, but with a strange kind of acceptance. This scar is proof I survived something terrible, that I kept going when everything fell apart, that I made hard choices when they needed to be made. My daughter called it ugly, but ugly is a woman who manipulates her father's guilt while planning to trap an innocent man with another man's child. Ugly is building a life on lies. Ugly is weaponizing love. A scar is just evidence that you healed. I don't know if Quinn will ever understand that. Maybe someday, years from now, when her son asks about his grandfather, she'll tell him the truth. Or maybe she'll tell him I'm a monster who destroyed her perfect day. Either way, I can live with it. Because when I look in that mirror, I see something Quinn never saw. A man who chose integrity over comfort, who chose truth over peace, who loved his daughter enough to stop her from destroying someone else's life, even if it cost him everything. Respect isn't bought with money, but it's earned through the choices you make when everything is on the line. Justice has a price, and I paid it in full. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.